Hello, guys. Thank you. Thank you, Prasad, for joining us on a podcast at Dawdle. Extremely grateful that you took out time to share your insights, your experiences with our global audience. We already have a subscriber base of over 100,000 plus senior leaders from across the globe, and we feel that this podcast is going to add a lot of value to a lot of leaders from across the globe. But before we go, to the topics that we're going to discuss with you, we want to understand your journey so far, Prashad. What was the spark that led to you starting Supatest.ai?
Yeah, hey, Rishikesh, thanks for taking the time on this Saturday afternoon to chat with me. And been following Toddle and watched a bunch of episodes. There you had insurance leaders and technology leaders, startups, and really excited to various topics. So I'll start with my introduction. So I have been an engineer, QA engineer myself. In the beginning of my career, I spent quite a bit of time solving for automation, automating testing for web applications and in telecom and various domains. And then I went on to become a developer and an engineering leader, worked for companies of all sizes, and largely spent a lot of time in startups and mid-stage companies as well. Have seen the engineering from all the angles and all the sizes and segments. Then when I was when we my co-founder and I, Dilip and I, were thinking through in this whole AI era, AI has been changing everything, right? Like as you've been following with the onset of ChatGPT and the whole LLMs. AI has been changing everything, and I've been very early in AI, right from GPT 3 days, and been tinkering and using AI myself, but also building things with AI. So that's where, where we were thinking about starting something new in this AI era, solving and building some transformational solutions, right? So that's where we sort of really thought about the problems in our own lives and our careers. And QA really came at the top of that list, and a problem that I've always wanted to solve, and I've actually tried to solve to some extent with processes and technologies in my previous roles as an engineering leader at these companies, right? So we thought like this is a perfect time to start and use LLMs and agents to solve this problem in a much better way compared to anything that has been done before.
Thank you so much, Prashad. And very interesting concept, Super Test. Would you like to, take us through maybe what is your vision for Super Test right now and in the coming 5 years?
Yeah, for sure. Like so currently we have a product that is being used by a lot of customers across UK, India, North America, and across sizes of companies like Series B, Series C, and upwards, and some startups as well. And we are at a place where, our product is creating a lot of impact for the companies that are using it. So just to give you a little bit of context of how our product works, right? Like, so you go into our platform and talk to our agents. So these are operator, Cloud Code, Cloud Computer Use, or these kind of agents. You might have seen the demos of these,
Yes.
computer using agents from these big players. So we bring that technology and basically integrate that into QA workflow. So you talk to our agent and explain about, give our agents a little bit of context about how your feature works, and then our agents go and automate those test cases for you. That's how it typically works. Like, the problem that it solves is that, like I briefly surfaced in my journey, right? Like, so typically, the people, software engineering teams spend a lot of time
Yes.
writing the test cases in the first place. Like, you use technologies like Selenium,
Yes.
Playwright, and I think you must be familiar with some of these
Yes.
technologies as well.
Yes.
So they spend a lot of time first to write the tests, and then to every release, with the tiniest of changes, these tests keep breaking,
Yes.
right? You would have to, teams spend tens of hours, fixing all of these changes in the UI and then updating the tests accordingly. So what we do is that you first of all come to our platform, create the tests very easily compared to sitting down and writing these scripts. You just prompt our AI agents and create the test. And then later, as the UI changes, our agents evolve the tests, automatically update and fix the test without you having to lift a finger. That's the beauty of the product. And so this has been, in a way, helping a lot of companies solve this problem, and people are actually saving tens and hundreds of hours every
Yes.
month. That's the impact that's been created today. And as we look forward, how we think about the whole testing space as such, how it is going to evolve is that, it's going to be more agentic. It's going to be more autonomous. Today, you might be writing 100 tests, and, for your SaaS product, and might not be covering a lot of edge cases, etc. Like, you might not be looking for a lot of exploratory testing. So
Yes.
I think with the agents in the workflow, we will be able to create like thousands and thousands of tests, right? Like, and cover each and every edge case, and you bring all of that customer data as well. Hey, this is how a particular customer has been using your product in a certain way, in a certain edge case, etc. The power of AI really enables quality that wasn't possible before, and the kind
Yes.
of coverage and the depth as well, right? Like, once you have the context from, so we have something called a context layer where we bring in all of your product information from your Jira tickets, your PRDs and your Figmas, and even your code base, right? So we bring all of that together and help you, create this test that humans couldn't even think about before. For
Yes.
example, let's say you have a backend and front end, and they integrate in a certain way, and some backend developer or an agent, for example, has changed the backend code in a certain way. But let's say it works for some basic cases, but it might break for some edge cases, right? Our
Yes.
agent can actually detect that and in real time create a test for that. So this is the future that we're looking at: agents that are watching your product all the time and testing the product all the time. Just think about like hundreds of agents keep testing your product in production as well in real time, and keep creating the fixes and the bugs for them. So that's a level of quality that you cannot imagine today. So that's the future that we are building towards.
Yeah. One question that was coming out of my mind, because I keep on talking to these engineering leaders, is that there are a lot of false negatives that come up when they have used such kind of tools. So how is Supertest different over there?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely, I think this is a challenge that people, generally AI companies face, that AI is a bit deceptive. You might have seen in your own usage of ChatGPT, Claude, and all of these tools, right? Like, they are very confident. The way that people term them as confident junior engineers in our
Yes.
industry, we talk about them as now overly confident junior engineers, right?
Yeah.
So that does happen in our workflow as well, in our product. Like, there's a chance of that happening. So first of all, we have built our product in a way that avoids those false positives as much as possible. But in the second layer to think about that is that you need to have systems and transparency in the whole product to enable that. Like, hey, how do you actually bring humans in the loop, right? Like, if you blindly trust AI, these false positives come up, and like, it might have misled, like, hey, I've tested this feature entirely, but like, turns out like it hasn't actually, it has missed some edge cases, etc. Right? So one part of that is verifiability. I think and this is Anthropic talks about this quite a bit. Like, explainable AI is a
Yes.
topic that Anthropic, they spend quite a bit of time and resources research into this. And how do you make AI systems explainable? So we have several features that actually makes our AI explainable. For example, it gives you thought process of
Yes.
what it is doing, what it is thinking. You might have seen this in some of the AI products. We have that, and we have additionally, we have a lot of visual feedback around. We actually give you a video of the tests that have been executed, and the whole logs, and each step that gets executed, it gets logged, and we have screenshots. We have the
Nice.
whole browser metadata as well. That gives you a lot more confidence that it is doing what in a way it actually saying.
This log part is very good, like, because this actually, even save their time in terms of identifying whether the
Yeah.
system is running well and gaining that kind of a confidence as well. Now,
Yep.
Prasad, since you have been into this space, we like to understand the current landscape, in especially in the space of SDLC. So can you talk about the current landscape of AI in SDLC and what's working well today?
Yeah, for sure. Like this is an exciting topic, right? Like a lot of excitement around this topic. You must have seen all the explosive growth in this area with Cursor at 500 million ARR. Maybe they're probably close to be a billion now or more. And Replit had a few weeks ago announced that they are at 100 million ARR, and like our Indian, one of the Indian companies, Emergent, you must have heard of the story. Mukund, Dunzo's founder,
Yes.
it's a great set of folks. They are innovating out of India and really helping teams excel in SDLC, right? So the whole landscape, how it looks today, is that broadly there are two kinds of products in SDLC. So one are basically assistants that basically work with you as a co-pilot, as an assistant, like GitHub Copilot and Cursor, Windsurf, and you have Cloud Code and all of these products that help you write code faster.
Yes.
Second is the end-to-end coding agents as such, or agentic platforms like Emergent, and you have Lovable, Bolt, and Replit, and all of these guys are building for that. So I think the way the adoption is much more visible on the prompt to code side, and of course like Cursor on the assistant side is also, there's quite a bit of adoption. The way these tools are helping today, I think definitely they have multiplied the productivity that you can have with a small team, right? Like with, for example, we are a 3 people engineering team, including me as a CTO, right? Like we built the entire product. It's a fairly complex product with AI and the product layer and the whole automation layer. All of these layers are fairly complex, and we've been able to push this product in the last 8 months to a very good state where people are actually using it in production workflows, and the mature teams are actually using the product, right?
Yes.
So that has been only possible because of AI agents. I would really give a large part of the credit to AI agents in our workflow. We've been talking about this quite a bit in our socials, and we've been doing some workshops, etc. But like today, it is still not. It's a very active experience, right? Like you have to be there. I think a lot of people are trying to do the passive, like async experience, where like you give a goal to an agent and that goes and achieves that, even though it's a small feature, small bug fix, etc., etc. Right? So today it is still at that place where you still have to be present. Said false positives and deception is a big issue there. So a lot of these companies are doing a lot of good work to solve some of these problems, but I think it is still at a place where it is more of an assistant. On the other side as well, it is kind of same, like people are doing great work there on the prompt to app side as well. You do get a initial version, but like you tend to struggle a little bit when you actually want to take that to production and like keep making changes, etc. I think we foresee that this industry is going to significantly evolve in the next a few months, and maybe an year or two. And like where I think inflection point for me personally would be when the async experience is possible. Right, like
Right.
when you're actually able to give a task to an agent and have confidence that it will be able to get that done. Of course, like everything is not going to be 100%. Like now, today, it's probably 50% or low, right? Like the inflection point will be when you can actually trust the AI most of the time, 95% of the time, to get the job done. I think that's where things will really take off, and you'll see a lot of fully agentic engineering teams operate and push products out there.
And always great to see an Indian company, kind of targeting such kind of a space, because I always felt that, India has got a lot of caliber to basically, rule this kind of a space. Also, Prasad, also want to understand from you, like, how has the role of engineers changed? So one thing that you mentioned is that the entire software development lifecycle has reduced. With a 3-member team, you guys have been able to pull up such a marvelous product in the market. So how do you see the role of engineers changing, and what are the new skill sets or mindset will they need as this role evolves?
Yeah, I think there's quite a bit of change in way of thinking. How do you actually, what is engineering, right? Like engineering was typing zeros and ones and like punch cards in the early age of computers. The first one of the first computers was ENIAC, and like the Alan Turing, the whole imitation game kind of operation, where computers in the actual word computers also meant actually a computer, like a person who computes. So there were a lot of people who actually sat down, and like there's a interesting story there, right? Like so from there we evolved into assembly language, a little bit better of an abstraction, a little bit higher abstraction. We still did a lot of low level stuff, and then we evolved to low level languages and high level languages like Java, the onset of Java, C++, etc. All of that, right? So if you see the journey there, and like today, fast forward pre-AI, if you see the lot of tooling has been implemented in engineering, and engineering actually, if you think about it, it's much easier, much more higher level, right? Like you're not manipulating memory anymore, more like all the dynamic languages, and like they manage memory for you, like Python and JavaScript and all of these languages, etc. Right? So on the same continuum, but the difference is that it took more than 50 years, right?
Yes.
The entire evolution took more than 50 years, and now all of a sudden we have a step function change where
Yes.
you're changing from as a role, as an engineer, thinking about code and like the at that sort of level, at a statement level, so to speak, at a line of code level, and now you have to all of a sudden move from that to much higher level, all of a sudden step function change to think about systems and products, right? So I think the role of engineers would evolve to be what I call product managers, manage engineers, right? So uh, it's a bit of a weird amalgamation of the two roles, and maybe we need to coin a better word for it, right? Instead of just adding these two words together. So I think that Palantir talks about the forward deployed engineers as a concept. I think a lot of Y Combinator talks about this concept. I think that will become more and more important. Like, as an engineer, you being in the forefront at the forefront of the customer problems, and really understanding the customer problems and bringing all of those learnings and insights, and creating solutions for you. Your role will be a lot more about product than engineering. Sure, like engineering, the fundamentals of engineering are still important. It's simply not as simple as like, I just ask it and not worry about what engineering is. You still have to think through the first principles of engineering and reason about the trade-offs of engineering, like what really matters to build these softwares that are easy to maintain and scalable, etc. All of those problem statements you still have to think about. But I think the importance will be more on the product side.
Yeah. And Prasad, since you will be pitching Supertest to a lot of development teams, so adoption will be a major challenge. The way they have to change their mindset from a particular set of processes that they have been doing to shifting to this. What are the biggest hurdles that you see teams face when they are adopting AI in their development process, and what are the common misconceptions around them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, with a timely one too, because as engineering leaders are thinking through this whole transition, I'll get to the testing part, but generally the overall AI adoption, right? Like it's a tricky problem for people to think about. It's a very new tool, right? And new modality as well. Like we just spoke about how the role of engineer is really different in this era. So what that makes it very hard for people to actually, and I empathize with that as well, right? As an engineer myself, I empathize with that. If a very new tool comes and like, all of a sudden, what you've been, it's equally hard for both the more experienced and the more junior new engineers as well. For the experienced folks, it's more around like reorienting their entire thinking around like, hey, I used to write code, I used to manipulate characters and write code, and I sort of optimized a lot of workflow around that, touch typing or like, IDs, which IDs, the usual geek stuff, right? Like, are you an
Yes.
Emac person? Are you a IDE
Hmm.
person, right? Like, and how do you type and how do you configure your terminal, etc., right? Like, now they are used to optimizing those workflows where you typed a lot of code. Now you don't have to type a lot of code. What would you do? Right? Like all of that, optimizations and the sheer muscle memory
Yes.
that you had as an experienced engineer for like 10 years, 20 years, people have that kind of
Hmm.
experience. How do you reorient your mindset and your muscle memory to actually think about it in a different way? That is very hard for experienced folks. For the new folks, it might be a little bit natural for them to think through like, hey, how do my engineers actually never coded like, we have hired bright,
Understood.
high IQ engineers right out of college, right? The other two engineers, founding engineers that we have, and they never write a line of code, wrote a line without the IDs, the AI
Yes.
IDs,
Hmm.
right? So their problems are, hey, now I'm writing a lot of code, or rather, agents are writing a lot of code for me. How do I think about learning, right? This is a conversation that we keep having every day. And like I went to FOSS India 2025 conference just last week, and I met a lot of junior engineers and bright college students there, and there everybody, as an engineering leader being there, like everybody came up to me and asked the same question, like, hey, how do I think about engineering, right? So that's what makes it hard as well to adopt on both the sides of the team level. Now if you
Yes.
think about the leadership level,
Hmm.
so how do they think about if you naively think about it from a number standpoint, right? Like, hey, I had like 10 engineers, I was used to ship 20 features or 10 features per month or release. Right
Hmm.
now, I should ship more, right? Like if you just purely optimize for that number, yeah, sure. Like you should definitely look at economics of the whole business, right? Like, how I can improve economics of the business and how can I reduce the time that is going into inputs of the software engineering, etc. But if you purely just optimize for that, right, like you can run into the situation where people are just shipping code without thinking about the quality.
Yes.
And honestly, I think I'll be honest with you, we have gone through that phase as well. Like, we got
Hmm.
really excited about the tooling is there, right? Like, we kept pushing. And then at some point, we saw a lot of issues happening, right? Like a
Hmm.
lot of deception, a lot of false positives came in, and like we did not have understanding of what code we were pushing, etc. And then we changed the approach to be more conscious. I think today I would say still have the understanding and think through the form. Don't, like, I would say to any
Hmm.
engineer thinking about this, like I would say that don't outsource your thinking to AI, right? You can use AI as a very powerful tool. You do
Yes.
the critical thinking part. You go through the problem statement. You understand the problem statement deeply, and then the whole mundane work of actually typing in the characters. Sure, that can be done by the agent, but you still have to review. Again, coming back to the question of adoption, right? Like, so these are some of the aspects that make it hard for, the engineering teams to adopt these tools and make the best use of it. And one surprising number statistics that we have had was that actually more than 95% of the teams haven't actually started using these AI tools. If you see, Cursor has been around for almost 2 years now, and Cloud Code has come
Hmm.
up, and GitHub Copilot has been around for a bit longer. And as we went and talked to a lot of these engineering teams, we saw that adoption is surprisingly low, right? I think the reasons are some of these, right? Like, people are on the enterprise side, people are concerned about, hey, what about my code base? Like, if I just give my entire code base to Cursor or any of these tools, do they train on my data? Like, or do I leak some information? So I think there, the what we have seen working for some of the teams that have actually made this transition is that starting small and slow, right? Like you roll out, a certain tool or a workflow into a few people and slowly seeing the quick wins, right? It is both important for both the leadership and the users who are actually using these tools as well. That, hey, you see quick wins immediately, and that gives them both confidence and then gradually improve, keep pushing forward the pace of adoption, because it comes as a surprise if you just go and say like, hey, from tomorrow we're using Cursor and you have to change your workflow, right? Another piece there is that education, user education and evangelism is really important, because see, it's a new skill, not just the tools, right? Like for people who use the tools and look at it from a that familiarity standpoint, right? Like if I used to think about it that way as well, that, hey, I've been using Cursor since their beta version, and I've been a very early user of a lot of these coding tools. It's very natural for me to think about, hey, it's just a tool, like, it's just prompt and like you get the code, right? It's not as simple, right? There's a lot of layers to it. And if you're a CTO or director of engineering, you need to either you need to be the evangelist for the tool, and maybe you learn and then teach the nuances of the tool and how to think about the tool, or you have some influencers or like some leaders in the team, like tech leads, etc., or engineering managers, them really guiding the team. Or you can seek external help as well, that there are a lot of experts in the space that can come in and help you with that whole education piece. So you bring all of this together and take it slow and have a roadmap to see what are the outcomes that you want to achieve, and like what is the state of the team that you want to have at the end of, let's say, 6 months. So if you think through this way, I think you'll see a lot more success as opposed to just putting the tool out there and expecting everybody to use it.
Absolutely. So Prasad, also, would you like to talk about a few important features of Supertest, which you are really proud of, and which kind of also showcases how AI can change the game for testing?
Yeah, for sure. So we surfaced about the agentic testing capability a little bit before, so I'll double down on that. So the ability to just write simple prompts and have the agent execute those instructions without having to worry about so we call it self-healing agent. So you just write, say, hey, say, for example, you are HubSpot and you are testing your content creation journey. So all you have to do is go and prompt saying, hey, let's go and enter the first name, last name, the contact email and address, etc., and submit the form, right? So that's the prompt that you have for the agent. Now, agent goes and executes that flow in real time, in runtime, by reasoning through the whole context, right? So we look at the state of the page and then the agent reasons. So we provide a lot of data to the agents, like, the vision, the screenshots, and the DOM metadata, and accessibility information. A lot of these information we provide to the agent, and then agent is able to reason through the whole flow and execute it in real time. So that enables two things. One is the self-healing tests that never break. As we spoke about the problem of maintenance, that's the biggest challenge than creation of tests, right? Like actually, in automation testing, test creation is not actually a very big problem, right? Like you spend a bunch of time and have these test data. Sure, that is still slow and it takes a lot of time, but the bigger problem is the maintenance, as we touched upon earlier. So that actually excites a lot of our current customers. and they literally come back to us and say that, hey, I used to spend 10 hours every week
Mm.
on maintenance, and it's almost zero right now because of Supertest, and that's a magical experience. And we get excited to hear all of these stories, right? And the second part is the planning and test planning and test creation aspect,
Mm.
where once you provide the context to our agent, they're able to go and dig through all of the nuances of your product, explore your product, and come up with a bunch of test cases that are really high quality. So our benchmark for that is that it should be as if those test cases are written by a senior QA engineer. So that is creating a lot of leverage for our users, and they're able to move in a matter of hours instead of weeks and months to create these.
Absolutely. And now, couple of very important questions is that what are the kind of customers you are targeting, and what are your competitive advantages, as compared to the other tools which are there in the market?
Yeah, sure. So the customer segmentation, like I think today we focus on Series B plus companies who have existing either have existing test automation setup, like you typically have these they're called SDETs, a software development engineering test. Those are struggling with test maintenance, and in industry specifically we have healthcare, BFSI, and e-commerce are some of the industries, and learning is another, education is another industry. So these industries tend to have a lot more, tend to value the testing a lot more compared to other industries, because if something breaks in e-commerce, for example,
Yes.
right, your checkout
Yes.
flow is
Yes.
broken,
Yes.
you're losing millions in revenue.
Yes.
All right, it's critical.
Yes.
Same thing in BFSI, fintech, financial services industry as well. You have direct revenue impact. Healthcare is more on the ethics and compliance part, right? Like if you're operating in healthcare, you can't afford to, you're literally, lives are at stake there, right?
Yeah.
So you cannot have things breaking there as well. So these are some of the industries that we are seeing a lot more traction on. And the second part, how we look at this problem differently compared to other players, other AI players, or the traditional players
Mm.
in the market, right? So in that, as compared to traditional players in the market, where that's fairly obvious that we are, they have built the product for the traditional workflows,
Mm.
and you have record and replay sort of products where like you're going and recording the tests, and that solves for the skill issue to some extent, that you're now not having to write code or implement these scripts. And there are a bunch of great products out there who have really solved this problem, but they still don't solve for the velocity of testing, right? It is still slower as compared to the code-based test creation. Maybe it's much faster than code-based test creation, but it is not significantly faster. If you're writing a script and it was taking you probably 2 hours, and this no code-based solution take you 1 hour probably, that is leverage for sure. But we literally change that to minutes, right? Like you just prompt, and you have like tens of test cases created, and then more importantly, the maintenance problem with these no-code tools still is not solved,
Yes.
right? Like it solves for the creation problem and skill issue. Now with these no code tools, maybe the manual testers were able to create
Mm.
tests as opposed to having a test engineer as that role, but maintenance is still a big problem. Now that is against the traditional player. If
Mm.
we switch gears to the some of the early players in the AI testing area, I mean, some of the players are looking at agents to automate testing as well. So how we fundamentally look at it problem differently is that, because of my experience in first-hand experience of actually doing a lot of writing actually thousands and thousands of tests, and
Mm.
also have been seeing the engineering deeply for the last 10 plus years. And also our research around what actually is important for mature engineering teams and what actually are these production level mature engineering teams are looking for, right? So we did a lot of deep research with our potential customers in the market in that. And what comes out of that is that, a lot of the problems that are in automation testing are accidental complexity. So there is this term of accidental and essential complexity, right? So a lot of this is accidental complexity because why you don't have why do tests keep breaking on the UI, right? Because developers can't follow the simple best practice of adding stable locators to their front end code, right? And having some of the following some of these best practices and really understanding from first principle standpoint how to make your testable, having accessibility attributes, locators, and all of these things, and having that feedback loop between the developers and the test automation team. So these are all very human problems, right? Because humans were, why do you have automation teams in the first place, right? Because it takes, let's say, a feature takes 20 hours to implement, and test implementation takes at least 20 hours, if not more often than not, it is a lot more than 20 hours. Let's say it takes 40 hours, right? So that's why in the human driven workflow, you had these engineering teams have such as a different roles, right? I think with AI agents, that's going to rapidly change because if you can write tests in matter of maybe 30 minutes, would you still have a different team do it? And is the cost of actually having the whole context transferred to the a different person, is that still worth or not, right? So those are some of the trade-offs that become really important right now. And with those insights, what how we build the product differently from, you could think about it like if you are coming from a naive standpoint or like from a very basic hey, I'll go and solve this problem with AI agents. I'll just have like prompt and like the AI agent will go and execute, right? Obviously, that's a big part of our product as well, but we think about it much more deeply around having all the flexibility to, if you want to write code, you can write code on our platform, right? I mean, we do have AI to actually help you write code as well, because it's not as simple as explaining to the agents for user interaction, submitting, clicking buttons, all of those things are easy to do. Agents are able to do that. But if you have a complex workflow, I mean, a lot of these mature teams tend to have a lot of these complex workflows, right? Like you need to download a file and parse that file and like make sure that validate that data, or you need to update, make a database call or like a API call to update some data before you create your test. So we are actually built for these complex workflows, and real engineering mature teams need all of these features. So we come from that mature production level enterprise ready product standpoint. I think that's what differentiates us from the other AI companies as well.
Very nicely explained, actually, Prasad. And then now at the end of the podcast, we'd like to, do you have any advice that you would like to give to tech leaders who are looking to future proof their organization with this AI driven testing?
Yeah, I think in general, my advice from a lot of conversations that I had with the successful teams that implemented as DLC and testing is that thinking about it as a tool, not as a silver lining. And we are all going through this journey of building AI tools and like adopting AI in general, right? Like I would say that broadly for AI adoption in general, but more specifically for testing, you need to think about it as a tool in your tool chain, your existing stack, and see what it can do and appreciate the power of those tools, and see and really value the leverage that it can bring, while acknowledging the shortcomings and the hallucinations. So all of these are going to be there because I mean, like, I think a lot of people, Andrew Yang and like Andre Karpathy and these AI legends keep saying that, like, hallucination is a feature, right? So really appreciating that nature of the AI, of course, like, we all are working like from a product layer Like in our product, like in QA agents, we are working on reducing those hallucinations, etc. Like, but from if you're engineering leader trying to really transform your engineering team to deliver 10x value to your organization, I think thinking through it as a tool, thinking through the first principles, how can you improve the workflow by bringing in AI, and where can you actually put the human in the loop? Humans, at the end of the day, humans are important. Like, all of this is to serve humanity, right?
Yes.
If you're we build products for humans, we do services for humans, so it's not going to be, I don't believe in the dystopian future of everything is going to be AI. Obviously, yes, like we are going to get like 90% or more leverage from AIs, but humans are important, and AI is there to serve them. So you, as an engineering leader, really thinking through and plugging that, hey, where can I plug in the human in the loop, and how can I improve my workflow with human and AI collaboration? And if you go in with the right mindset and spend time on education, adoption, evangelism, and give your teams enough time to adopt these tools and nurture the culture of innovation, I think you're gonna do great.
Thank you so much, Prasad. Very insightful session. Thank you so much for taking our time and sharing all these insights with us. And we from the entire team of Dawdle wish, Supatest all the best. Thank you so much, Prasad.
Thanks a lot for hosting me, and looking forward to learn a lot more from other conversations from the industry as well on the other podcast. So wish you best as well.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Rishikesh. Bye.